Along the way, I think Bishop said something very interesting for this kind of panel, and that in my last remarks I want to focus on it. She says, an effect of this institutional promotion of these ideas of artist as designer, function over contemplation, which Josh Greene invoked, and open-endedness over aesthetic resolution, is often ultimately to enhance the status of the curator, who gains credit for stage managing the overall laboratory experience. It's intriguing to me that in attending to the place of the curator in social practice, Bishop again uses a theatrical language, the role of the stage manager. And I'd like to think a little bit with you and help you think with me about what this analogy might mean. So let me just say briefly some things about what I understand coming from in terms of the tradition of the field that I've entered social practice. What is stage managing? In the first stages of an artistic process, the stage manager is the person who sits in meetings with directors or choreographers, set designers, lighting designers, sound designers, costume designers, increasingly video and media designers, later actors and dancers, and sustains a pragmatic conversation about the execution of an artistic vision. Sometimes this conversation is about a stage manager receiving instructions from the artist, but more often the conversation that's sustained by the stage manager is one where she tries to get a varied group of artists to articulate their hopes, indeed to come to full acknowledgement and articulation of what the artist's hopes might be before the artist has even often articulated them to herself. They might ask, what are the component parts of the show? What performers are needed for what parts of the show? The subtext behind that being, what kind of time commitment, rehearsal commitment do I need to tell performers ahead of time before they agree to participate? They might ask, what kind of space do you imagine for the performance? How centrally, in what ways will performers interact with the space? The subtext being something like, how soon in the process do I have to finish building the set so that the performers can integrate it into their actions? So sometimes the above and many, many more such questions don't always follow a prescribed template, but time and experience shows that the stage managing process of performance, which is to me the management of collaboration amongst different individuals in and out of space, in and out and over time. These kinds of questions need to be addressed. In the second stages of the artistic process, the stage manager is the person who makes a schedule. The notion of the schedule assumes that certain kind of larger scale commitments can be made. To schedule is to sequence collaboration in space, that is to coordinate bodies in and out of space over time. To stage then is not only to me have associations of display, but also to break down the artistic process into stages. To stage manages to arrange the schedule and to endure all sorts of requested modifications of all sorts that will be made as the process unfolds. The stage manager also accompanies the artist, quietly taking notes on the forms of support necessary to incarnate a developing vision. Those notes are then passed around to other various members of the collaboration, saying things like, and I'm quoting from stage manager notes for a show we closed last weekend, quote, Anne expects to want about 50 oversized pens. She asks that you email her if you have any ideas about what to use. In the meantime, she's going to look up possibilities online, unquote. Or, if we have one piece of butcher paper, 4x40, per cue to cue, dress rehearsals and performances, that comes to 11 pieces. If we need one each for brush-up rehearsals, it will come to 13 pieces. 13 pieces equals 520 feet long total. Or sometimes the notes are intended for a particular artist in the division of labor, like the costume designer or sewer. Jacob would like the socks to be tight on the foot with some additional fabric over the sock to make it look baggy. Other times, the stage manager's notes are a defense against liability. Gwen has a long-term ankle injury for which she needs to wear a shoe and an ankle wrap. It is her responsibility to bring these items with her, unquote. Stage managers also remind artists that they need to cooperate with the systems that sustain them. For instance, to commit to the burdensome task of placing their costume in the same place every night so that they can have the privilege of knowing that someone will wash it for them. Finally, a stage manager is the person who, if working in a theater that's lucky enough to have booth and a headset, calls the show, which is to say she is the person who communicates with a large crew of individuals, simultaneously responsible for producing a simultaneous event, responsible for lights, sounds, props, and ticketing to manage its unfolding in time, and to troubleshoot and improvise on the spot when that unfolding does not go according to plan. The unfolding of the plan is often framed as a cue, as a series of cues. The cue is the technology for the so-called live durational art form. This group-based durational art form needs cue after cue to become a simultaneously coordinated event. If there's a relation between curating social practice and stage managing, this is a form of curatorial management that stays present to the artwork at every moment it is being received by others. Not unlike running a symposium. It's a completely non-trivial job. So as you can imagine, all sorts of experimental performance now challenge naturalized work habits and naturalized divisions of labor that have developed in the traditional theater. Improvisation, endurance performance, art life blurrings and happenings all challenge systems of coordination, making stage managers' job of troubleshooting around the live more complicated. At the same time, it seems to me that the expansion, that things are also working in the reverse. That is, that the expansion of heretofore visual art forms, say, or literary art forms sometimes, from painting, poetry, sculpture, photography, film, to, say, social sculpture, installation, expanded cinema, social practice, that the art world is having to reskill as well. I'm reminded of some conversations I had with René de Guzman when he was at YBCA and putting together the William Popel visit around the Black Factory. William and René and I were meeting, and William wanted, he said he wanted humans intervening with each other in non-art world sites involved as well. As the conversation went on, we would say he wanted performances, audience, docent interactions, community engagement at different sites outside of YBCA, prompting, as we came to ask, a series of more questions like, by when were the performers needed? Would there be an audition? How many times would they need to be on site? How will community sites be chosen? How will ethical issues about William's lack of presence in those community sites before the opening be negotiated? How will the performances be held at specific times? Do we need to ticket? How will audiences know to gather there? I remember René saying to me, "You're good." And I'm actually not. I'm not a stage manager, but it seemed interesting to notice that a certain kind of stage management consciousness needed to come into play to support this artist. That continued through its repeated execution and the unwieldy management of the Black Factory's extended practice, which William has noted make him sometimes unable to sleep, and he has allowed me to say, give him ulcers. The systemic support of live, spontaneous, group-based, durational work often does. So when I think about curating social practice and stage management, about the sleeplessness and the ulcers and the non-triviality of the job, I take that back to thinking about the exigencies of artistic processes that coincide with the contingencies of collaboration, its management of bodies in and out of space over time. To stage manage such forms is to inhabit a space of perpetual foresight, tacking back to create a sequence of necessary fundamentals, anticipating a dynamic simultaneous group structure that can bring an event into being, support improvisation in the event, and nimbly respond when the creation, as the piece unfolds. This is a world where people run into each other, literally and figuratively. It's one whose objects and bodies need to be cared for and continuously restored over time. While valuing the artfulness of this form of human care and systemic coordination might mean that a few curators become stars, or in Bishop's language, seem to receive extra credit for something that, in a way that she feels is undue. From where I sit, the conceptual, formal, and social significance of valuing and interpreting such a support system might be worth the risk. So thank you.
Improper, lacking propriety, modesty, good manners, or good taste. This improper intervention appears within a scene of propriety. It occurs within the cordial and refined space where East meets West, host meets guest. The one bows to the other with the utmost formality as they initiate the ritual of cross-cultural exchange occurring within art school pedagogy, popular culture,